Good morning. Um, Today is February 7th, which is a Monday here, and this is the first Child Support Connection of 2022. This is the Delaware Division of Child Support Services, and I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And of course, most interested in providing individuals who tune into this live Facebook event, which is held on the first Monday of every month from 11:30 to 12:30. And the hope really is to be able to provide information to custodial and non-custodial parents, whether you live in Delaware or in another state around the country, about how we handle child support here in the first state. So last month in January, we did not have an event, but we're glad to be able to start it back up again in 2022. And next month, Monday, March 7th, will be the next date that we hold this Facebook Live event. But I wanted to, like I said, share a little bit of information about some things we're doing here in Delaware. Most recently, we signed a agreement. The Division of Child Support Services here in Delaware signed an agreement with the Remand Project. And the Remand Project is a nonprofit organization that works with men here in Delaware and in some other states around the country who are age 25 and older, and who are ready to make some substantial, significant changes in their life. Not only from a child support perspective, hoping that the gentlemen get back on track if they have to pay child support, and start to make regular child support payments, but also other things that may be going on in their lives that need to be corrected, whether it's relationships with custodial parents and relationships with children, that whole family reunification process. We're hoping that the Remand Project will be able to help with some of those activities. And really, it's about making gentlemen here in the first state who maybe have been pushed aside or left aside to really kind of focus on things that will make them better in society, and have be given tools on how they can work with things that may have been burdensome or obstacles. Really, that's kind of like the best way to put it. To help them overcome obstacles that they face in society and in our communities here in Delaware. So Delaware Division of Child Support, we're so happy to be able to team up with the Remand Project, because we want to be able to refer non-custodial parents to the Remand Project to not only learn a little bit about how they can get back on track with their child support payments, but to really kind of deal with some other issues that may be going on with them in everyday life. The other thing that we're hoping to do with the Remand Project is give them an opportunity to be able to refer people who are that are already in their program, or who are being added to the program, to give them an outlet to learn about their specific child support issues. So giving them a specific person that they can deal with to get information about how to get back on track with making their regular child support payments, and how to get them back on track with being working in a better way with custodial parents and with the family court process. So that's the second way. The first way is child support, referring non-custodial parents to the Remand Project. The second way is that the Remand Project will be able to have a direct link to the child support program for people who have a child support obligation, who are currently in the Remand Project. And then the third thing that we're hoping to be able to do with the Remand Project is to be able to come and talk to them. Come and talk to the gentlemen that they are working with about child support here in Delaware, and giving them a formal presentation about child support, And it'll tapping in a little bit to the family court process and understanding what happens as a non-custodial parent in the child support system, being able to maneuver through that system. And really, my main hope is, and this is something that we've been trying to do and hopefully have been doing successfully over the last couple of years, is being a force in providing good information to non-custodial parents and to custodial parents for that matter about how we handle child support in Delaware. Information being provided to people who are a part of this process is the most valuable thing I think we can do to help them understand the ins and outs of the child support system in Delaware and around the country. So, the remand project, like I said, we haven't referred individuals yet, but we are looking to start doing that as soon as we possibly can. And like I said, we're looking for individuals, non-custodial parents, who have a child support obligation, 25 years of age or older, that are interested in making a significant, substantial change in their lives. Not only about their child support situation, but other things that may be holding them back in succeeding. And the Remand Project is a awesome way for us to be able to get positive change in people's lives. So I wanted to start off by talking about that because, and I'm hoping actually that I can actually get the leader of the Remand Project. His name is Dr. Donald Morton. I'm hoping maybe at a future Facebook Live event, I can have a dialogue with him, Facebook Live, and ask him some specific questions, and he can ask me some specific questions about child support, just so that we can expand the level of interest in the Remand Project. I have to learn a little bit about Facebook in order to do that and have that conversation, have a two-way conversation with someone, but I'm hoping to be able to do that maybe next month or maybe even before next month. We hold a separate half an hour event just to kind of learn a little bit more about what the Remand Project is doing here in the first state of Delaware. So I hope if you're a non-custodial parent, 25 years of age or older, and you're interested in learning a little bit more about the Remand Project, please consider calling us. And our customer service unit telephone numbers for custodial parents, non-custodial parents, I'm going to give it to you right now, 302-577-7171. If you want to learn a little bit more about the Remand Project, please feel free to call us in our customer service unit, and we'll be able to answer, hopefully be able to answer your questions. The other thing that I'd like to do while I'm doing the Facebook Live events is to encourage questions. So if you're a custodial parent, a non-custodial parent, I hope, anybody who's tuned in right now, I love to answer child support questions, and I hope I do a good enough job in answering those questions. So if you have a child support question and you want to see if I can answer it, go ahead and put it in the comment section. That's one of the most important things about doing these Facebook Lives, is being able to answer questions from the public, and I certainly want to be able to do that. The other thing that I like to promote is, and I do this all the time, if you've seen a previous Facebook Live event, the third Wednesday of every month, I appear with Jake Smith down at WGMD down in Sussex County. It's 92.7, and they've also recently acquired 98.5, and they call themselves the Voice of Delmarva. So if you're in Sussex County, or you're in Kent County now, or you have access to the WGMD app, you can hear me on the third Wednesday of every month from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. I'm on the radio down in Sussex County with Jake Smith. So we take questions from the public, and Jake is a big supporter of the child support program, and he will, if there's a question that comes into the radio station, that comes above everything else. If we're talking about something and we get a call, he jumps right on that call. And we certainly want to be able to answer your child support questions. So feel free to call WGMD It's 92.7 and 98.5, and they have now expanded into Kent County. So that's all the promotional stuff I really wanted to talk about. I'm hoping that some questions do come in, and if there is a couple comments and questions. So let's go ahead and just like we do on the radio station, if I get a question, I'm gonna stop what I'm saying and we'll hit these questions, and that's the most important thing to me. So it says, the first question is, why can't my son receive child support because his dad is now on disability? So if the non-custodial parent is on disability, there's two forms of disability. Social Security disability insurance and Social Security disability, totally disabled and that kind of thing. Social Security and the benefits that are paid out by Social Security it can be one of the most complicated questions that a lot of our child support specialists face. So I'm going to just kind of keep it as general as I possibly can. And if you have more specific questions, I encourage you to call our customer service unit. So the one kind of Social Security benefit, there are, where an individual is totally disabled, benefits can be paid directly from the Social Security Administration to the child. And in those situations, we will not create a child support order. And the benefits for that child are being paid directly from Social Security Administration. So the needs of the child are being paid for through that Social Security payment once a month from the Social Security Administration. The other form of disability, we can and oftentimes do create child support orders with the help of the Department of Justice and the Family Court to go ahead and create an order just like they normally do using the Delaware child support calculation, and the Family Court will order that a wage withholding be sent to the Social Security Administration, and we will receive those payments from Social Security and forward them to the custodial parent. So it's important to first find out from the Social Security Administration what benefit is being paid to this non-custodial parent, and that will determine whether child support will go ahead and create an order with the help of Family Court, or whether the Social Security Administration will pay those Social Security benefits directly to the custodial parent on behalf of a minor child. So my final instructions, I guess, would be to really call the Social Security Administration and determine if this child, the child or children, would be eligible for benefits directly from them. And if not, contact our child support office and let's see what we can do to get an order in place in order to make sure that the needs of the child are being met. The next question, what is the process for pursuing action for non-compliance with paying child support for a non-custodial parent who's not paying? As a custodial parent, I am a client of the division. So there are many different types of enforcement activities that we take when someone is not meeting their child support obligation. And first and foremost is filing a contempt petition with the family court. So if someone is not paying as they're supposed to, we can file a contempt petition that has to be reviewed first by the Department of Justice. They're going to look at the petition that we filed. They're going to look at the case and actually determine, yes, there has not been a payment in 60 days or 30 days, and the non-custodial parent still has the ability to pay. So, in some cases, and I don't want to kind of veer too far off the beaten path here, but in some cases, a non-custodial parent may no longer have that ability to pay. And it may be not prudent for us to file that contempt petition. We use various techniques and look at various pieces of information to determine, yes, this person does have an ability to pay and should be making his payment or her payment on that child support case. So the first thing is a contempt petition with the family court with the help of the Department of Justice. The second, so after that contempt petition, there's multiple enforcement tools that we use to encourage non-custodial parents to get on board with making regular payments. And I say it that way because, for instance, our license suspension program. The license suspension program, where we can suspend a driver's license, a hunting and fishing license, a professional license, or a business license, that program, which is mandated by the federal government, we're required to have a license suspension program, it does get quite a bit of grief for the child support office from various entities, because they keep saying to us, if you suspend this gentleman's license or this lady's license, she can't go to work or he can't go to work, so how is he supposed to make his payment? The biggest benefit of that license suspension program is really to start a conversation with non-custodial parents. We send them a letter that says, we're going to suspend your license. The hope is they're going to read that letter and call us so we can have a talk with them about what's their current status. Are you working? If you're not working, why? Are you disabled? Did you get hurt on the job? Or were you laid off from your employer, but you're coming back in 3 months, or furloughed, or that kind of thing? So the best thing about that license suspension program that we always have to try to stress to people is it creates an opportunity for us to have a conversation with a non-custodial parent. That license suspension program is an automated system. So there's not a worker that's hitting a button that says, hey, this non-custodial parent is not meeting their obligation, we're going to go ahead and suspend. The child support system is automatically, every night, looking for people who are over arrears of $3,500, haven't made a payment in 30 days, and they're automatically sending them a letter that says, we're going to suspend your license unless you reach out to us. So we're always encouraging non-custodial parents to do that. So the license suspension program is another enforcement tool. Passport denial. Someone wants to get a passport. We can tell the State Department, don't give that person a passport because he's delinquent on, or she's delinquent on her child support case. We cannot stop someone who currently has a passport in hand, but we can stop them from getting a new passport. And normally the requirement to get that passport back is to pay your arrears in full. So, that's just another program, the passport denial program. I've talked a lot on previous Child Support Connection videos about the state and federal tax refund program. So if a non-custodial parent is due a refund from the federal government or from the state of Delaware's Division of Revenue, we will intercept that refund to pay off to be applied towards child support arrears. So that's another program. Recently, when the federal government issued stimulus checks, or economic impact payments they were called, in May of 2020, we were able to intercept those payments, and those payments were applied to non-custodial parents who were in child support arrearages. From time to time, I get letters from non-custodial parents. I'm still getting some letters that said, as a part of the CARES Act, under the Trump administration in May of 2020, that we should not have intercepted their payments, and that is not correct. The federal government allowed child support agencies to intercept those economic impact payments, and we were able to do that. So I've already talked a little bit about tax refund, passport denial, license suspension, the contempt petition process. We can seize bank accounts. If a non-custodial parent has a bank account with a large sum of money in it, we have matches with banking institutions, and we can intercept those payments to pay off some arrears. So there's a whole bunch of enforcement tools, and we always start off by saying we'd like to try to work with non-custodial parents before we generate that contempt petition, because really, why make people go to family court and have to kind of work through that stuff when we can just find out where you're working and issue a wage withholding. And if you want more information, this is the best thing I could say too. If you want more information about our enforcement tools, check out our website. I always tell people go to Delaware, de.gov, Delaware.gov, and then at the top it's got a list for directories. We're under the Department of Health and Social Services. So go ahead and go to the child support website, and you'll learn a whole bunch of things about what we're doing and related to enforcement tools and that kind of thing here in Delaware. So let's see here. I did ask, okay, so this is a follow-up to the disability question. It says, I did ask child support what can I do, and they said nothing they can do. I already have an order in place. So what we can do is we can certainly go ahead and if you want to go ahead and send a DM or a personal message to our office with your case number, my community relations officer will make sure I see that information, and I'll get in touch with the worker, and I'll take a closer look at whether the disability payment should be coming directly from Social Security or whether there's something we can do. And we'll consult with the Department of Justice if we have to and get clear information on how we can get you some good information on the next steps as it relates to disability payments to a non-custodial parent. So feel free to send us a personal message, and we can help get you a better answer, get you the most accurate answer about next steps related to your child support case. It's a little hard for me to kind of give you a definitive answer. So feel free to, like I said, send us your case number, and we'll go from there. And I'd be more than happy to give you some information. So those were all the current questions that were in the comments section. If you're viewing this and you have a comment or a question, feel free to add it to the comment section. And like I said, I'll stop what I'm doing, and we'll go ahead and we'll hit those questions, and I hope I'll be able to answer them for you. So I thought what I would talk a little bit about today is how do we get a child support case here in our Delaware child support system. And there are actually several ways that we actually get a case. The first way, I'm going to talk about our relationship, the Division of Child Support Services relationship with our sister agency, the Division of Social Services. So back in 1975, the federal government created in Section 4D of the Social Security Act, giving you a little history here, the child support program. And specifically the child support program, Title 4D of the Social Security Act, our main responsibility was to recover funds on behalf of the state that were paid to custodial parents in the way of TANF benefits. That's temporary assistance to needy families, formerly known as welfare, but they call it TANF, temporary assistance to needy families. And so child support was created to recover funds that were paid out by the Division of Social Services. Later, they added that it's because of its importance, child support would also be responsible for trying to make sure that children in the child support caseload had medical insurance coverage. And that's one of our other responsibilities, is if health insurance is available either through the custodial parents or the non-custodial parent's employer at a reasonable cost, we would go ahead and make sure that an order was created that, hey, you're working, you have health insurance, your child can get enrolled in that insurance program, so we're going to ask you to go ahead and do that. And they do that, and the child hopefully will come off Medicaid, which is a state-issued health insurance plan. So a child support case can be created when a custodial parent goes into the Division of Social Services and applies for and is able to receive either TANF or Medicaid. And we will automatically get a case referral from that agency our Division of Social Services, and they actually, with information they're populating in their system, in their computer system, we automatically get a case referred to us here at the Child Support Office. And it's our responsibility to work that case. And we often tell our colleagues at the Division of Social Services, when they're creating those cases, to try and put the most accurate information in your case, because that case information transfers over to Delaware's child support system, and we have a case that we can start working immediately. So one of the most important things I can tell custodial parents who go into DSS and try to get TANF benefits is to be honest with your worker at DSS, give them the best information about yourself, your child, and the non-custodial parent. That will help us on our end create that case. So in addition, if the custodial parent goes and gets Medicaid for their children at the Division of Social Services, we will automatically get a case from the Division of Social Services, and we will work that case here at Child Support, and we'll work it for when it's Medicaid only. You're not getting TANF, you're just getting Medicaid. We will work that case as a Medicaid case, and try to make sure that medical insurance is available. But we always ask the custodial parent, hey, you have an opportunity when we go to court to get that medical order, you have an opportunity to ask for child support, but it is totally up to you as to whether you want that child support payment in addition to the medical insurance notation on that court order that we're going to go ahead as a child support agency and get. So you have an opportunity to say, no, I don't want child support. I just wanted to make sure I get that medical insurance order put in place, and we'll go ahead and do that for you. We have a new question. What happens to child support if the father passes away? So if the non-custodial parent passes away, child support would end. The current support obligation would end, and any benefits to the child, a minor child, would be paid directly from Social Security. But the current support obligation here in Delaware would end, and there are some techniques and tools that we have that if a deceased non-custodial parent has a will, we can serve papers on the executor of a will to make sure that child support is considered when they are executing their obligation to make sure that the deceased person's debts are being paid. So it's always important that if a non-custodial parent passes away, that we find out about it here at the Child Support Office so that we can revoke the current support, and we can then maybe pursue trying to get arrears paid off. But any benefits would be paid directly to the child through the custodial parent from the Social Security Administration. So I hope I answered your question. So going back to, yep, I'm just checking to make sure I got all the questions answered. So going back to how we receive a case here at the Division of Child Support Services, there's the first two methods. Custodial parent goes to DSS and gets TANF. Custodial parent goes to DSS and gets Medicaid. We get an automatic case referral here at the Child Support Office, and we work those cases. So if you're a custodial parent, you may not even know we're involved until you get a letter from us. I can just similarly to I was discussing when we send a letter to non-custodial parents when we want to say suspend a license. It's so important as a custodial parent or a non-custodial parent. If you get a letter from the Child Support Office, please, please, please open it and read it and contact us if you need to contact us. That's so important. But so those are two ways that we get a case. The third way that we get a case is anybody who has a child in the state of Delaware who wants child support can fill out a child support application And you can do it online, or you can call us and we'll send you an application that you can fill out and return to us. The application requires, if you've never been on TANF, you've never been on Medicaid, it does require a one-time $25 application fee. But for that fee, you are getting all of your documents filed for the life of that case directly with the family court at no cost. You're also getting a lot of enforcement tools and other things that we do at no cost. It's definitely worth $25 to apply for child support services, and we will help you manage your child support situation. I think another question has come in. Let me just take a quick look. So going back to the question about the deceased non-custodial parent, my oldest child is 16 years old, and her dad passed away, but owes $30,000 in arrears. So, yeah, and this person is interested if she's ever going to see those funds. So ultimately, unless there is some sort of a will that can be tapped into, or other kind of settlement that may have occurred, those arrears are probably not going to be able to be recovered. But I encourage people, if this is your situation, is to go and file with the Social Security Administration as soon as possible. So, okay, but in this particular situation, I got you. I think she was asking what happens when a non-custodial parent does pass away. She's now informing me that he is not deceased. I think that's good news. I hope that's good news. And if you need enforcement to help us get that $30,000 that he may owe you, I'm encouraging you to contact our office at the 302-577-7171, and we will certainly try to do everything we can to help you get that payment. Get payments on those arrears. And as long as the non-custodial parent, I'm saying this with a smile on my face, I hope that's not bad. But as long as that non-custodial parent is not deceased, we will continue to collect on those arrears if your child is 40 years old. Until those child support arrears are paid in full, you as a custodial parent are obligated, and we are obligated to try and collect those arrears for you. So I hope that does answer all of your questions. And if the non-custodial parent is still alive, we will try the best that we can to make sure we're getting a payment on those arrears, and that those arrears are paid in full as long as that debt is owed. So I was just about to talk about the third way that we get a case here at the Child Support Office, and that's through that child support application. You can call us and we will send you an application, or you can go online to our customer website and you can fill out an application online and submit it to us electronically online. All that information about our customer website is found at our website, our child support website, de.gov. Go to the directories tab and look for us under Health and Social Services, and we will get you that information. You'll get information about the program and how to file an application for child support online. One way that I don't talk about a lot for custodial parents to get services with us here at Division of Child Support, if your child is enrolled in a Head Start program, you can receive child support from us here in Delaware for free. And all you have to do is submit an application and let us know that you are a Head Start recipient, and we will go ahead and create a case for you and work that case, and you do not have to pay that $25 application fee. We are doing some work with the Department of Education here in the state of Delaware, specifically related to Head Start, and working with specific daycare programs in the state to make sure they know that we want to reach out to their parents to inform them a little bit more about the child support program in Delaware. So I wanted to mention that about the Head Start program because I really don't talk about it a lot. But I want parents to know if your child is enrolled in a Head Start program, we want to be able to um, connect with you and help you get child support. I have a new question, and it's what if a father works under the table so he doesn't have to pay and he recently got married. When the new wife files their taxes, will I receive their tax return? So if kind of two parts to this question. And I think it's always important when we talk about people working under the table to let people know that that is one of the ways that non-custodial parents, when they're trying to avoid paying child support, working under the table is one of the ways that they do it. Secondly, when they are working or their income is from illegal means, that's another way that they can avoid paying child support. The only one way that really works for us is bringing them back into court for contempt findings and letting the courts intervene to deal with their not working legitimately or working on the books. We always want to encourage people to work on the books so that we can send a wage withholding to their employer to intercept child support payments from their paycheck. So it's important that we know where people are working. Working under the table is one of the ways that they get around that. The second part of this question about their tax return, if the parties file their taxes together, we will intercept those taxes even though the non-custodial parent is remarried. There is a process that the IRS uses with the child support programs here in Delaware and around the country to make sure the current spouse gets their portion of the tax refund returned to them. So there's a way that the IRS sends information through our Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement and then to us here at the local child support agencies to determine, hey, part of this tax refund was the current spouse's. You need to return that back to us so that we can send it to their current spouse. But a portion of it can remain at the child support office to be applied towards arrears that are owed to the custodial parent. That's how we do it. The IRS will communicate with us, hey, part of it goes to that current spouse and part of it goes to the non-custodial parent, and we would keep that portion. I got a couple other questions here, and keep them coming. I really appreciate it. I have 50-50 custody and pay $300 a month. My daughter tells me the mother is spending her support money on her and her boyfriend. What enforcement options are there to make sure that child support is benefiting my child? So this question is something that is often raised, and I hear it. I've heard it quite a bit, not only here in Delaware, but in other communities around the country. That hey, the other party isn't spending the money as I think they should be spending it on the child. And there's, from a child support agency perspective, there's not anything we can do here to make sure custodial parents are using those funds wisely. And the only way that I can really describe or can really talk about how non-custodial parents should try to kind of deal with this situation is to look at it this way. And I'll give you an example. Custodial parent is getting her nails done using child support money. The best way that you can look at it is, other funds that maybe she avoided using to get her nails done were being paid for the caring of the child. So using this money to get the nails done is maybe just a way that she is budgeting her money or he is budgeting his money to make sure the needs are being met and that the child support is maybe being used on things that the custodial parent needs to take care of themselves. But you got to remember things like housing a child or paying the utilities and paying other types of necessities for that child. It's a big umbrella that there's a lot of bills associated with raising a child or children in a family, and you got to just think about it that the needs for the child are being met because you as a non-custodial parent are paying regularly, paying on time, and payments. Kids see this, that hey, mom is getting her child support or dad's getting his child support payments from the other party, and that says a lot to the child about their needs being met by the non-custodial parent. So you just got to kind of look at it that way. I mean, I wish there was a way that I could justify it. I really can't. You just got to be able to just know that you're doing what you need to do to meet those needs of the child, and just try to look at it like that. One last thing about the 50-50 custody and you're paying $300. I'm not sure if that's the appropriate amount that you should be paying. If that order is relatively old, 2.5, 3 years old, you may want to reconsider going back into court seeking a modification. That's something that the courts can help you do. There are resource centers in all of the family courts, and you can certainly look at trying to file for a modification. Another question. Why do you work better with Maryland when the absent parent flees to another, better with Maryland when the absent parent flees to another state and avoids paying child support to help support their child? I have raised my son from the age of 2 on my own. My son is now 15 with no help from the father, with a case in the child support agency. Your agency doesn't work if they flee the state. So, okay, and there's a similar situation with the state of North Carolina. So, I certainly don't want to make excuses for the child support program. When a non-custodial parent starts off in Delaware or is determined to be living in another state, you're adding another layer of complexity to the child support case. And I know if you're the custodial parent, you may not want to hear that, but one of the things I found out over my career here at child support is you got to be honest. And when a non-custodial parent flees to another state or goes to another state, it does add that level of complexity. What we try to do is always try to work it as a Delaware case and try to get non-custodial parents to comply with a Delaware wage withholding or with a Delaware order. But when they don't comply, we have to tap into the other states to help us either enforce a Delaware court order or actually get them to create an order in their state on behalf of our client that lives here in Delaware. So let's say, for instance, we've asked the state of Maryland to create a court order. There isn't a court order in place. So we ask them to create a court order for our client here in the state of Delaware. They become the state of jurisdiction, and they hold all of the responsibility to create a court order and then enforce that court order on behalf of Delaware. So when our custodial parent that lives here says, hey, I'm not getting a payment, and the order is in a different state, we are bound by their state's rules. And some of the rules are a little bit different than how we do our cases here in Delaware. So we have to go by what they're asking us to do. So we ask them to enforce it. They may have different rules about the time frames and how long it takes to get a contempt petition through their court system compared to our court system. But it does add a layer. If the non-custodial parent who lives in a different state starts paying again, they have to pay the child support agency in that state. And then that state processes the payment and sends it to Delaware. Delaware processes that payment and gets it out to custodial parents. So it does add a layer of complexity. we try, and we have a separate unit, an intergovernmental unit here in the state of Delaware that tries extremely hard to work with other jurisdictions, other states. And we have to reach out to them, whether it's through writing them a letter, hitting a button and sending them a letter, a transmittal, that's what we call them, to have them work our case on behalf of our client here in Delaware. Or we send them information electronically through a child support system that interconnects across child support agencies. And they have to react to that document or that request for action in their state on behalf of Delaware and on behalf of our client. So, and they're just like Delaware, they're managing a caseload in their jurisdiction. So there are just so many levels of complex that makes it so complex. And our reaching out to them, trying to reach a worker in another state sometimes is difficult. And they say that about us and we say that about them. Sometimes it's difficult to get them to react to our custodial parents here in Delaware. So it does add a layer and it does add more work. But we try hard to reach out to other jurisdictions. And there's situations where I have to reach out to division directors and they reach out to me about trying to get some assistance with those intergovernmental cases. So it does, we try to get them to move as quickly as we can, but we're really bound by the case activity in their states. And they work hard. I mean, we work hard and they work hard to try and to work those cases and get those cases in court for those people for those non-custodial parents who are not paying their child support obligation. So I hope that does help. And like I said, I don't like to try and make excuses. I certainly hope that and want every case to have their obligations met. But reaching out to other jurisdictions sometimes complicates that matter. And not sometimes, it's really all the time. It's really all the time. Got another question? But let me just, before I move on to that other question, let me say this. If you're a custodial parent here in Delaware and you have another case in another state, don't give up. Don't give up. You keep calling us because we will keep calling the other states, or we will keep sending them a letter asking them what the status of their enforcement activities. They have the same programs we do, the same enforcement tools. So we can keep applying our pressure to them to find out what the status of your particular case is in their jurisdiction. And I meant to talk one other thing about another state. When both parties live in Delaware and the non-custodial parent moves to another state, we oftentimes, when the non-custodial parent doesn't comply with the Delaware order anymore, they stop. We often have to ask that other state to register a Delaware order in their state to then start enforcing that Delaware order. So if you have a Delaware order and the non-custodial parent has moved somewhere else, you can still, we still will try to treat that as a Delaware case. He's working in the state of California. We issue a wage withholding directly from Delaware to California, that employer, and they can send us money directly. But if all things fail, the payments stop coming in, we can ask that other state to register a Delaware order in their jurisdiction and treat it like their state's order. So there's two ways that work. Okay, so the next question. This is rather long, so I'm going to try and get through it, and I see that she's also asked a follow-up. So, let's see. Okay, this is about kind of under the table. He's been doing it for years, working under the table. I keep bringing him back, and every time we go to court, they get more lenient on him. When I ask for funds or be placed in the plumber center, the courts will tell me, tell me, well, you accepted $1,000 the last time, so that's what we are going to ask for again this time. Then I have to wait for 3 more months of non-payment and take him back. It's a ridiculous process. And then I'm going to go to your next question after I answer this question. So this kind of deals with individuals who are working under the table. And if people are working under the table and they want to send in regular scheduled child support payments, the child support office doesn't care. You know what I mean? We don't ask questions. As long as payments are coming in regularly, we're happy, and we can send those payments out to custodial parents, and hopefully they're happy they're getting their payments regularly. So in this particular question was, hey, we keep having to go back to court, and the courts will say, we're going to ask before we send them to Plumber Center, which is a level 4 correctional center here in the state, or before we incarcerate them, which we don't, I'm going to admit, we don't like to see people incarcerated. So they will say, you're going to make a payment of $1,000, non-custodial parent. And then what they do is they say, we're going to hold a review hearing. And they go right into the family court system and say, the review hearing is going to be on this day, at this time, 3 months from now. And we're going to come back and look at the non-custodial parent's payment history. A, did he make the lump sum payment of $1,000? Did he make regular child support payments during that 3 months? Did he start working and send the child support office a place of employment? They're going to look at all of these types of things. I want to assure this writer, though, if the non-custodial parent continues to flaunt non-payment, continues to not meet that $1,000 payment, or to avoid being incarcerated or something along those lines, the courts are taking note of that. And the courts are only going to take that for so long. And they will eventually lead towards incarceration. If they haven't what they call red flagged your case by now in the courts system, you should ask the Department of Justice to do that at your next hearing. Because the more times a non-custodial parent, and this should be a lesson to non-custodial parents too, the more times you tell the court, I'm not going to comply with your instructions to get a job, to make regular payments, to make that lump sum payment, they will eventually incarcerate you. So it's important that you try to avoid that by making regular payments. Call us and let us know where you're working. We can issue a wage withholding to that employer. But the courts only do that for so long. Now, mind you, COVID has played a role in what they're doing related to incarceration. They are not incarcerating as much because they don't want to inundate the correctional facilities here in Delaware with having to deal with an outbreak of COVID. But that's only going to be around for so long, and I think the courts will consider incarcerating more and more individuals for non-payment of child support. So it's important that non-custodial parents know this isn't going to be something that is going to be going on, at some point they're going to incarcerate. So some follow-up questions from this particular person. And also, what also happens when my kids age out? Do I still keep requesting every 3 months or a non-payment of non-payment, or do I go after him? After the children emancipate, you would still, like I said before, you still would have a case. We would still file on your behalf contempt petitions for non-payment. The courts would continue to do their thing related to getting those arrears paid down. One of the things that I always like to tell non-custodial parents when they have an arrears-only case is every payment you make, whether it comes from you directly, whether it comes from a tax intercept, whether it comes from an employer, every payment you make on an arrears-only case, it's only going to benefit you because that arrears is just going to continue to get lower and lower and lower until it's zero. It's never going to go back up because that current support obligation is now no longer in place. But the arrears balance will continue to reduce. So it's always in your benefit to make those payments. It's always you always want to make payments even when there is a current support obligation because you don't want that arrears payment to go up higher and higher. But it will only benefit you, the non-custodial parent, when it's an arrears only case, because it just continues to reduce those payments. So it's in your benefit to make those payments continuously and make them for as large as you can, because once that obligation is over, you're done. And you can celebrate the fact that you've paid off your child support obligation. I love when I look at a child support case when I'm on the phone with a non-custodial parent and can celebrate the fact that, hey, your arrears were 10,000, 500, and now they're 4,600. You're doing great. Keep it going. I always love to celebrate non-custodial parents who make those payments to get that arrears balance to zero. And that should be a big relief to non-custodial parents. He sends nothing and owes, he's continuing to owe 20,000. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been over 15 years of doing this, and my case never has been red flagged. So my suggestion that is, if it's not been red flagged, I'd be kind of surprised because they have you keep coming back. But certainly reach out when you go to your next court hearing, whether it's via Zoom or whether it's in person. Definitely talk to the Department of Justice about whether it is, and if it has not been red flagged, then it may be something to consider for future, incarceration for this non-custodial parent. And I'll go back on the record as saying I don't like to see when people are incarcerated, but the courts will only take so much of it. And if you want someone to personally look at your situation, like I said earlier, send a DM or a personal message to the child support site, Facebook page, and my community relations officer will let me, he'll take a look at it, will let me know, and I'll take a look at it, and we'll get with the worker and the supervisor and have them take a closer look at it. So go ahead and send us a personal message. So I got another question. This is from a different writer. Can someone claim someone as a dependent, not working, that is not married, who owes child support? Will the IRS take the person that is filing taxes for the person? I'm not kind of understanding the question, but I don't think this is a question I can answer. But I'm going to read it one more time. Could someone claim someone as a dependent, not working, that is not married, who owes child support? Will the IRS take the person that is filing taxes? Will the IRS take the person that is filing taxes for that person's child? I'm not really sure I'm understanding the question, and this is probably a question I don't have the answer to because it's more of an IRS question. So I'm going to say I apologize for not being able to answer this question. And if you want to send us, send an email with this question, maybe kind of hashed out a little bit, or a personal message, maybe cleaned up a little bit, we will try to answer it for you if we can. If not, you may want to refer to. They're asking if the IRS will take another's taxes. So the IRS, my community relations officer is trying to help me out here. So they will not take, the IRS, for the purposes of intercepting a tax refund, will not take anyone else's taxes, a tax refund, unless they are a non-custodial parent on a child support case. So, for instance, we notify the IRS. We notify the Division of Revenue. Here's a list of non-custodial parents in our child support system that owe arrears that meet the threshold amount. They run it against anybody who's filing a tax refund, intercept, who's getting a refund, and they send us those payments if they meet the qualifications. But they will not intercept someone else's taxes for the purposes of paying off a non-custodial parent's child support arrears. So I see that time is running out. I want to thank everybody for these awesome questions. They were fantastic. Thank you for viewing the Child Support Connection for February 2022. We are coming back in March 7th for the next edition of the Child Support Connection, the Facebook Live event. Stay tuned. Keep your eye on our Facebook page. I may try to get Dr. Morton from the Remand Project to come and do maybe a half-hour segment with me on Facebook Live to answer your questions about the remand project. If you know a non-custodial parent age 25 or more who may be interested in becoming a member or joining the remand project, they maybe can tune in and get some information and ask some questions about the program. The last thing I want to say is tune in the third Wednesday of the month, and that is going to be February 16 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. WGMD 92.7, 98.5. Check out their app. Their app is great. And we'll be answering questions from the public from Kent and Sussex County on the radio. So stay tuned. And thank you. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Get vaccinated if you're not. And take care. Have a good one. Thank you for joining.